A Mother's Trust. Written by Dilly Court. Read by Julie Maisey. The moral right of the author has been asserted. Chapter 1. Saffron Hill, Clerkenwell, 1877. The darkness surrounding the table was heavy with the spirits of the departed, or so it seemed to Phoebe, who was hiding in a cupboard watching the proceedings through a knothole in the door panel. A single candle created a pool of light in the centre of the green chenille tablecloth, on which rested the hands of the nervous participants in the séance, their fingers touching and their heartbeats palpable in the eerie silence. "Is there anyone there?" Annie Giamatti's voice rang out loud and clear. "Are there any spirit people who would like to speak to me?" Phoebe waited for her mother's cue, which meant she must tug the piece of string dangling in front of her face. It was attached to a length of gauze that had been smeared with fish scales to make it appear phosphorant, and concealed in a gaudily painted vase on the sideboard. It was hot and stuffy in the cupboard, and she had a sudden urge to sneeze. She wrinkled her nose, holding her breath until the moment passed. A low, throaty moan from Annie was the pre-arranged signal, and Phoebe pulled the cord with the expertise of long practice. If she tugged too hard, the material would fly up to the ceiling and might get caught on one of the cup hooks that held it in position. If she did not exert enough pressure, it would hang limply like a chemise on a washing line, and the game would be up. "I see a spirit manifesting itself," Annie droned in a monotone. "Come closer, friend, and speak to us." A muffled scream, followed by excited gasps and whispers passing between the three women at the table, indicated that the apparition had created the desired effect. "Is that you, Henry?" Phoebe recognised the voice of Mrs. Fowler, widow of the late Henry Fowler, cobbler and notorious skinflint. She sounded frightened, but filled with hope. "It's me, ducks." Annie's tones deepened into her interpretation of a male voice. "Are you happy where you are now, Henry?" "Very happy, Ethel." "Are you in heaven or the other place, Henry?" "I'm all right, Ethel, but I have to leave you now." Annie's voice trailed off, as if the tortured spirit of poor Henry was being dragged back to limbo. "Don't go yet, ducks," Ethel pleaded. "Tell me where you keep your cash. I've got to pay the bills, and I'm down to my last farthing." Phoebe held her breath, hoping that her mother remembered Henry Fowler's boast that he kept his money hidden in a place where Ethel would never think to look. It had taken several pints of brown ale to loosen his tongue in the public bar of the Three Bells, but Annie had come home laughing fit to bust, and a little swipey herself. "The crafty old codger hid his gold sovereigns in his peg-leg, Phoebe. He hollowed out the wood and dropped them in one by one. Would you credit it?" Annie exhaled 3 shuddering breaths. I'm fading fast." "Tell her, you mean old goat." This time the voice belonged to Ethel's sister, Minnie Sykes, a large woman with fists like hams, who, widowed at an early age, had taken on the profession of rat-catcher. It was fabled from Saffron Hill to Bleeding Heart Yard that she killed the vermin by biting off their heads. Phoebe was convinced that it was no lie. She gave the string a gentle tug, hoping to distract Minnie's attention for long enough to allow her mother to finish the séance before things turned ugly. "Tell me, Henry, please, you got no use for money where you are? For the love of God, think of your dear ones left to struggle on alone." Ethel ended on a sob, which might have been more convincing if Phoebe did not have first-hand knowledge of the dear ones left to struggle on their own. Henry had fathered 3 sons, all of them raw-boned and burly, and a daughter, Dolly, who was a bit simple. The brothers worked at the Metropolitan Railway terminus, doing jobs that required brawn and no brains. It was said that by the time they reached the door of the family hovel in Bleeding Heart Yard on a Friday night, they had already squandered their weekly wages on strong drink and loose women. Phoebe peered anxiously through the knothole. "Please, Henry," Ethel cried, wringing her hands. "For the sake of our boys, tell me." "Me wooden leg," Annie murmured. "You'll find it there. Don't let them layabouts have it, though, and pay Annie Giamatti double what she asks."
Sample complete. Ready to continue?